Good morning, everybody. Okay, as you grab your food and your drink, come on down. We got lots of tables, and don't be shy. I promise I don't bite. We are going to be talking about the stewardship of creation, growing a rule of life. And if you, like me, when you first see this, go, what is a rule of life? Don't worry, we're going to talk all about it. And by the time you leave here today, you'll have it. So we're going to start with the collect from Ash Wednesday. Let us pray. Almighty God, you have created us out of the dust of the earth. Grant that these ashes may be to us a sign of our mortality and penitence, that we may remember that it is only by your gracious gift that we are given everlasting life. Through Jesus Christ our Savior. Amen. Okay, so welcome. Have a seat. Come on to a table. Got lots of fun things to do today. And this is going to be our Lenten series. So it's going to go all the way through to Palm Sunday. And I hope that you'll indulge me because this is a passion of mine. Getting in touch with our Creator God through his marvelous gift of creation. This is something that you will notice if I have not been able to get outside in a while. You will notice that my skin, my coloring starts to go off, my attitude's a little more grumpy, maybe I'm seeming a little frantic, and I always, when I get to that spot, think I need to go on a walk through the woods. I need to go get kind of lost in creation, or go next to the big, mighty Mississippi, or walk around the lake at Shelby Farms for a while. And that tends to put me back in touch with the order of life, with the whole bigger picture, and kind of out of my little tunnel vision of things. So this entire series, we are going to take a journey through Lent. We're going to do some inward work with our rule of life, and then also some very tangible, get your hands dirty sort of work as we journey through this together. And it all is rooted in a quote that lives on my desk. And this quote is, I love to think of nature as an unlimited broadcasting station through which God speaks to us every hour if we will only tune in. Now, this is by George Washington Carver, and most of us, when we hear that name, think peanuts. But he did a lot more than that. He was actually very much a person who wanted to celebrate the land, the abundance of the land, all the gifts that God gives us through the land. And when I see this quote, it makes me remember that going out in creation is not just a way to escape everything. A lot of times when we go on a hike or we go camping or we go into the wilderness, we think, oh, I'm just escaping all the busyness of life. But to me, it goes back to that saying that Sandy says all the time in his classes. When we go into the wilderness, what happens? We see God. We see God as a chance to tune more closely in with the world, not just to escape it. And in our society today, it's not as easy as it used to be. It used to be that people were walking to church, walking to school, taking a lot more time of the land, more agricultural-based economy, more times in which you would be encountering God's gift to creation on a daily basis. And now, what are we doing? We're in a climate-controlled box, staring at a computer screen, on a phone, or doing email, or indoors for much of our lives. And so now, especially in our day and age, takes a lot more intentionality, a lot more planning, a lot more thinking ahead, and really carving out that time to get in touch with God's creation. So that's something that we're going to be talking about over the next 5 weeks. So to give you an idea of what to expect, you're getting 2 for 1 this Lent. There is a curriculum that was written by the Society of St. John the Evangelist. This is a monastic order, and also in cooperation with the Center for Ministry of Teaching at Virginia Theological Seminary. And this is called Growing a Rule of Life. And this is all using extended metaphor of creation as we craft our discipline, our rules, the way that we want to kind of structure our life during Lent as we're thinking about what are we going to give up, what are we going to take on, what habits might we want to form, what habits might we want to leave behind. So that is all kind of that inward work. But as we talk about that, we're also going to be looking at the outward. So what is this broadcast that God is giving us through creation? What can we learn from that? And not only what can we learn from it in a broader sense, but what about right here at Holy Communion in West Tennessee? What can we be learning through God's gift in our time, in our place? So this is something that I've kind of compiled with my experiences, but also with the help of the Reverend John Burris, who is a canon missioner for the diocese, and the Reverend Noah Campbell, who is the head of food and faith in Memphis, Tennessee, and taught a Wednesday class here that was met with great energy, and so we want to offer that to everyone on a Sunday. John will be here next Sunday speaking about diocesan initiatives, such as his aquaponics project down at the diocesan house. Noah Campbell is going to walk us through this last Lent of 2016. He did a gardening project in which he chronicled his garden from the beginning of Lent to the end, and then journaled and did self-reflection during that time, and kind of connected the dots of the parallels between his garden and his own growth as a person in a spiritual journey. So we're going to get to hear from both of them. He'll be here on the 19th, and some other ways that we can kind of pull in the resources that we have right here at our fingertips. So the rhythm of nature has a lot to teach us about the rhythm of life. Psalm 19 says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows God's handiwork." The heavens declare the glory of God. Again, this 24-hour broadcast, if we look and we observe and we immerse ourselves in this wonderful gift that God has given us, we can learn so much about God and about our relationship to our Creator. Rhythms and patterns of life in the natural world around us can inform our lifestyle and our life choices. Raise your hand if you are a gardener. I didn't say good gardener, but if you've ever tried gardening, that counts. That counts. We're all okay. When my daughter was a toddler, she went through the normal stage of being a very picky eater. Nothing that was good for you was going to go into that body without a big old fight. She would eat puffs and goldfish and pretzels all day long, but forget a carrot or a pea. So we started a vegetable garden. And so we are going on our 12th year of vegetable gardening in our home, and some have been fabulous successes, and some have been fabulous flops. And through all of it, you learn so much about God's time. Nothing you can do can make that squash grow any faster except for tending to it. And at a certain point, you've got to give it over to God. That squash is going to come out when it is ready, depending on the weather, depending on the soil, depending on all of the things that are going into that plant that we have no control over. I was talking to Judy Phillips earlier, and we were talking about the cherry blossoms in D.C., and so much goes into celebrating these cherry blossoms every year, but you have no idea when it's going to happen. I mean, it's going to be sometime in March or April, but beyond that, you've really got to watch the weather patterns and what God is doing in the world around us to even figure out when those cherry trees are going to bloom. And you know what? They stay blooming for maybe a week, and then they're gone. They're majestic, but it teaches us about God's time. We can't hold on to everything. We can't control everything, and I know we like to be in control. And we also can just sit back and marvel at the majestic beauty that is just so overwhelming when it does come to us, that there are almost no words to describe it when you get to immerse yourself in that. So, being in touch with the earth reminds us of God's time, that kairos. It also reminds us of the vast expanse of interstellar space. We've just come out of a whole season running through Eucharistic Prayer C. And Eucharistic Prayer C reminds us and brings us back to that Gospel of John where we put things into this cosmic order. And you know, standing at the foot of a waterfall, you think, my problems, my dilemmas in my life are this big. And that waterfall is so amazing and so majestic and so powerful. It can give you that momentum and that inner strength to pull through because it reminds you of the vast expanse of interstellar space. There's a book called Reviving Ophelia that is great for anyone raising adolescent daughters. It has been a major force in my parenting, both with daughters and sons. But one of the things it recommends is that you get your children outside on a regular basis, because that's what gets them in touch with the bigger picture. As a 12-year-old, a forgotten homework assignment can feel like the entire earth is going to stop rotating, and everything is going to turn to dark, and the earthquakes are going to open up chasms in the earth, and everyone's going to fall in. And getting them out in nature reminds them and reminds us that this too can be helped and healed by the grace of God, because a God who can give us these awesome things in nature is a God who can do infinitely more than we can ask or imagine ourselves. When the Israelites went through the wilderness, the one thing that God said to them over and over and over was, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of bondage in Egypt. Trust in me. And getting out into nature can remind us that we have a Lord our God who can do so much. But it does take a great amount of trust. It does take a great amount of giving up that control. It takes a great amount of humility to say, okay, I'm going to follow you, and I have no idea where we're going, and I have no idea if that manna is going to fall out of the sky tomorrow just like it did today, but I have to trust that it will. And also, that whole part about being freed out of the bondage of Egypt. In Egypt, in Pharaoh's system, each person was really only valued. Each Israelite was valued on what they could produce. That was their worth. What can you produce as a slave of this system? And so often in our economy, too, I see that we have self-imposed this idea of, I am worth what I produce. I am worth what I consume, because that's what keeps our country going. I am worth what I spend and what I make. And getting out of that, breaking that system and getting out into nature can remind us that no, I am worth all that I am worth because I am a beloved child of God. I am made in God's image. And you know what? I can take a Sabbath day. I can take an entire day in which I produce nothing, and I can just be. I can be me, and that is enough. I am loved by God. And so that is what I hope we can journey more deeply into during this Lent, is being who we are as marvelous creations of God, and just letting ourselves live into that. And breaking those damaging cycles of you must produce, you must consume, you must run the rat race of this life. So a rule of life a rule of life, you hear the word rule and you kind of think, I got enough rules in my life already. But I want us to think about rule in a different way. Rule as in regulate. Something that I want to impose into my life so that I am living proactively. I am living in a way that I want to live my life and not just reacting to the world around me. When I first got to Holy Communion, the first thing I would do when I opened my office doors, I would check all my email and I would react to it. And I was stressed out of my gourd. I suddenly realized, no, I need to take charge of my day. I need to come in, center myself, think these are the 3 things I want to accomplish today, get some of that done, and then open my email and react to it. How can we as people say, this is what I want my day to look like? Because if we react to everything that comes our way, it's not going to be the day we wanted. We're going to live our lives, look back on the last month, and regret that we didn't do the things we thought were worth doing. So what is worth our time? What is worth our energy? What is worth our spirit and our talents? And we can impose that into our calendars. We can create our own appointment. It doesn't have to be, well, now I've got to meet with so-and-so at 3 o'clock. It can say, now at 3 o'clock, I'm going to go and I'm going to take a walk around the campus. Or, now when I go to get my cup of coffee in the morning, I'm not going to check my Facebook feed. I am not going to read the paper. I'm not going to start making my to-do list. I'm going to go take that coffee out onto the screen porch. I'm going to listen to the birds. And I'm going to just let myself be for a little while before I get to where I am doing and producing for the day. So a rule of life is something that we want to change in our lives, or that maybe we've started that we want to fine-tune and practice in our lives, or something that we want to take away from our lives that will help us live intentionally. It will help us live to be the people of God that we are called to be. And this can be one small thing. It can be lots of little things. It can be one great big change. It'll be different for each one of you. And now I want to kind of show a little bit to flesh this rule of life out. The Society of St. John the Evangelist gives us a daily email that has ways to support you throughout this journey. So in the cards and the flower pots in the middle, which each one of you can take one home today, it's going to have a challenge activity for the week or 2. And this week it's to sign up for these emails, not so that you can spend more time on the screen, but because they are very short, very concise, usually a small video that will support you in your journey so that you can live that intentional life throughout Lent. And this is one of the videos that came through the 3rd day, and it's talking about, well, why is a rule of life going to be helpful to me as I take this journey? So.
Now, when you hear rule of life, part of you may say, oh, I can't deal with one more rule. But we want you to think again. Rule, as in rule of life, comes from the Latin regula, from which we get our word ruler. And having a rule of life is a way of sizing up and getting the right kind of measurement and proportions, the right kind of model, the template, for you to live a life that allows you to be fully and freely alive. In the monastic tradition, rules of life have come into being for 2 reasons. One is because life is so precious, and it's also fleeting. We don't know how long we will be alive. We do know that we only have today to live today. There'll not be another day like this. And so having a rule of life allows you to attend to what is most important in life as you steward the life that God has given you. In monastic tradition, the other reason why rules of life have figured in so importantly is so that you don't live your life regretfully with lots of shoulds, or I only wish that, or I really needed to. But to front load what your priorities are in life by having a rule. If you were to think, well, how would I begin thinking about a rule? Think about it in terms of relationships, how you relate to yourself, how you relate to others, how you relate to God. How do you relate to yourself? Body, mind, spirit. What do you do to stimulate your mind and body? What do you do to recreate your mind, your body? What do you do with money? Think about it also in terms of relationships with others, with other people, with family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, people whom you choose to relate to, people whom you cannot avoid relating to. What about people who get under your skin in not a good way? What about your enemies? Also think about others in terms of creation, the created order that surrounds us, things big and small, air and water, the creatures that fill the earth. And then think about your relationship with God. Jesus promised that he would be with us always. So how is it that you practice the presence of God as you navigate your way through the day? I think of a rule of life as like a nozzle that you would put on a hose. That nozzle will give the water that's coming from the hose direction and focus to hit the target, whatever that may be, rather than the water just flaying out all over the place. And in that way, a rule can really bring you focus in life. I'd say if you're going to start working on a rule, do it in pencil. Try out some ideas, sleep on them, and then try them out. Not just for a day, not even just for a week, but try them out for a few weeks. What you've got in your rule of life. Something else that's really helpful, perhaps from the get-go, but certainly along the way, is invite someone who knows you and loves you, whom you trust, someone who says their prayers, to take a look at your rule. What do they see in it? What's present? What's missing? I think you'd find that helpful.
How could a rule of life be helpful to you right now?
This January of each year before, or December before Lent, and to me having a few weeks or a month to prepare curriculum just is not enough. So I like taking this year's curriculum, digesting it, seeing if that's something that works for us, and then offering it the following year. So anyway, if you go to this website, you will see all of the wonderful resources that you can take what you want and leave the rest. It's not something that's going to tally up. You listen to every single video this week or anything like that. If you want to listen to Tuesdays and none of the other ones, fine. If you want to look again at something that we talked about in class that maybe wasn't quite as clear as you'd like it to be, that's great too. So this is just a tool for you. And some of you might say, no, I don't really want to do more things on a screen. And that's all right as well. But this is a tool that is for you to use to help enrich this journey. One of the things that he talks about is that imagery of the hose, and that nozzle gives the water coming out of it direction. It gives it the ability to hit the target. And so we are going to be using a lot of those gardening metaphors as we create our rule of life. And today we're going to start not by just the hose, because you're watering something, right? You're watering something that you've planted probably in a garden. We're going to start with the seeds and the stakes of that garden. And then we're going to learn how to nourish it. So the seeds are, what are the individual things that I want to see bloom in this Lent? What are the things that I want to see grow in my life this Lent? And then if you've ever tried to grow squash or sugar snap peas or purple hull peas or any of those things, you learn that as these things start to grow, sometimes they need additional support. So you get stakes, and you plant the stakes, either the big tomato cages or the little, sometimes I've used bamboo skewers or big twigs from the garden, or you can buy fancy ones at Home Depot, those stakes that help give support as that plant grows and winds its way upward. So we're going to look at what are these things that we want to plant. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of confession here in learning that I have had through the years of planting these seeds. And he says it's a good idea to always start in pencil. And I cannot say how much I agree with that statement, because it is true. All of Lent is our trying new things, and we have to have the grace to say some of it's not going to work. And I think sometimes that ends up feeling like we've added more guilt to our lives by the time we get to Palm Sunday. But what I want to help you all live into this Lent is that that's not a failure. That's a learning. So one year I gave up all sodas. My great-grandfather was the head of a Coca-Cola bottling company in Houston. So we grew up with Coca-Cola in our house, in our sippy cups, in full stock at all times, not the healthiest. And so I grew up drinking a lot of sodas. Well, I thought, I'm giving up sugar. I'm giving up that sweet treat. I didn't think about the fact that by the third day when I had a migraine headache, that I had actually been consuming a drug my whole life. So I go into the doctor and I say, I can't get rid of this headache. It's horrible. I don't know what to do. And they said, well, have you changed your diet lately? So, well, I gave up Cokes for Lent. And he just looked at me and he went, caffeine withdrawal. You are 8 years old and you're having caffeine withdrawal. So I learned sometimes you have to ease yourself into a discipline. You can't sometimes just go cold turkey all at once. Another Lent, I decided that I loved animals so much I was not going to eat a single one. So I was going to go vegetarian, much to my mom's dismay, because that made planning dinner a lot harder. At the end of Lent, I was very proud of myself. Actually, I think it was only about the third week that I again found myself in the doctor's office because I was having unexplainable fatigue. I was bruising easily. I thought I might have mono. I got the test. It came back negative. I thought I might, have beginning symptoms of pneumonia. So I didn't know what was wrong with me. I'm anemic. And if I take out all red meat from my diet, I do not eat enough spinach to make up for it. So it all of a sudden showed me that these cycles in my life when I would feel this kind of fatigue for a few days and I wouldn't be able to understand it, that was all related to what nutrients I was putting in my body. And fortunately, until this day, I've been able to regulate that anemia with my diet. And it doesn't have to be through meat. For me, it's a combination of a lot of different things. But that taught me something about how my body works. And it also taught me something about my relationship with food and how that affects how fully I live my life. So there are seeds that we plant, but then there are stakes that we need to do to support it. I finished out that Lent as a vegetarian, but I learned I had to have certain safeguards in place in order to do that. If I was going to go vegetarian, I needed to up my plant-based intake of iron, and I probably needed to go on a supplement if I was not going to have any sort of red meat, given what I like to eat and what I didn't. So there are stakes that we place to help us. Last example. One Lent, I gave up using all plastic bags, and I think I've mentioned this to you all before, but I gave up using all plastic shopping bags. And he talks about having somebody in your life that you are accountable to, who can kind of help look at your rule of life and say, this is what's missing, this is what's not, this is what you need to add to it. Well, I needed to get a good stock of reusable bags. And not just reusable bags that could live in my car, but reusable bags that I could put in my purse really easily. Because my rule was if I went into that store and I didn't have my reusable bags, I was going to come out holding everything, which made for some really embarrassing moments at the checkout line when I realized I'd left them in the car. So having my children hold me accountable was a big piece of this, because every part of me wanted to say, I'm a busy working mom and I do not have time for this. I'm just going to have to do that Lenten discipline tomorrow. But when you have Xander looking up at you and saying, Mom, you can't use a plastic bag, it helped. It held me accountable. So to this day, I've now been plastic bag free for 3 years, and it's hard. Even this week, I went into a store to buy party favors for Neely's birthday party and forgot my bags. And I had to leave the cart in the kids' clothing section, run out to my car in the rain, get my bags, and come back in. So it's a work in progress. There are times that you slip up. I have added another stake to that garden, and that is if I am on vacation or if I'm in another bind where I really do need to get done with this and I've got to use a plastic bag, I give $2 to World Wildlife Foundation. So I've built this kind of backup plan. If all else fails, World Wildlife is a recipient of my mistake. So don't let a rule of life add more guilt to your life. Let it be something that helps you live more abundantly. And to start doing that, we are going to look at what are some seeds that you can start with. So in the flower pot in the middle of each table, you'll see a variety of either flowers or edible plants. And I am going to challenge you all to think of at least one rule or habit that you're going to put into your life or take out of your life, and write it on the back of that seed packet. If you would like to, you can plant these seeds, and as your rule of life shapes you as a person and grows you as a person, you can watch a tangible parallel. As your plant grows, so will your life grow. So feel free to take a look, sort through them, find out what you like. If you hate beets, don't take the beets packet. Maybe take the sunflower packet. If you want to look at other tables, there are some flowers and some edibles in every pot. So these little packets show you what's in your pot. So if you want to kind of look at these and say, oh, I like oregano, and then search for the oregano packet, you can. But that's what these came out of. So it tells you what's in your flower pot. So I've had some really good questions, and I just want to highlight a couple that have been consistent across tables. First thing is rule of life, this thing that you're writing down. What is the Lenten discipline that you want to take on? That's kind of the terminology we're used to using. So that can be something that you're giving up or taking on. What is that one thing? Some of you started at Ash Wednesday, and you can use that. Or some of you are still like, gosh, I need to give up something for Lent, and I haven't thought of it yet. Or take on a discipline. That's what this rule of life is. It's how are we going to form habits or get rid of habits that help us grow in this life. And these are some examples. So as you're thinking of these, I just put up some examples. Here's one that says, I want to keep only the clothes that I enjoy wearing. This goes right on the heels of Marianne McDonald's class, where she talks about how we can be good stewards of what we have and what we consume and how we use it, and that also gives us the ability to be good stewards of our time. So one idea, I'm going to keep only the clothes that I enjoy wearing, and I'm going to simplify. Or Every day, I'm going to do one thing that makes things better, one random act of kindness. Or I'm going to set specific exercise goals, 30 minutes a day, 6 days a week. Give 1 day of Sabbath. Okay, so it can be that specific. The intentional practice of silence in the morning on retreat days, things like that. Build some silence into your schedule. Again, this is something where you can come to centering prayer. You can come to Wednesday Eucharist. You can come to your desk and set a 5-minute egg timer or a timer on your phone, or do something that builds silence into your day, because we live in a world of noise, constant noise, and it's hard to live intentionally when you're just constantly trying to filter what's coming in at you. Always enjoy reading, so pick out a fun book, pick out a spiritual book, pick out an informational book. Grow in your mind or your body or your spirit in some way. There are books on each of the table that are books that I've drawn from for this class. So there are great resources out there if you want to grow in one area or another. So these are just ideas. And one says, I love this one, wink at myself in the mirror every morning. Keep it fun, keep it light. So they don't all have to be so serious. We as Anglicans like to make everything very serious. And this can be fun. It can be light. It can be good. So think it along those lines. I'm going to give about 5 more minutes for us to work on these. And think about those stakes that you're going to plant as well. What's going to support you? I told these 2 tables over here, another kind of lighter example is that Andy gave up cussing last year, and he's giving up again this year. He works on a bond trading floor, so it's not as easy as it sounds. Last year, he had to text, I love Justin Bieber, to a friend every time he cussed, and he could not explain why. This year, Neely and Xander's allowance goes up by $1 for that week. So his hope is to get from like a crazy $20 allowance back down to more of a $5 allowance for them. So think of those stakes, those things that are going to support you and help you grow in that rule of life. And take about 5 more minutes, and then we'll reconvene. Okay, so now that you've had some time to kind of figure it out yourself, one thing I want to commend is that this is only the beginning. Okay, you're not going to be a master gardener on the first day. So take this as the beginning of an exercise. If you think of something during the week, add it, fine-tune it, adjust it, make it work for you. Okay, this is about making it achievable, making it a challenge, but an achievable challenge. So is anybody brave enough to share theirs with the larger group? Yes. You created one. Now that's a funny one. What is yours that you created for Tricia? Her day will go the direction that the corners of her mouth turn, up or down. You set the attitude. You don't just react to what's going on. To have that set your attitude. That's a big one. You're going to give everybody else one. You know, I actually have a friend who has partnered with somebody else, and they pick each other's Lenten disciplines. That's hard. I mean, talk about an accountability partner. They usually know you better than you are willing to be honest with yourself. That's a hard one, but I really like that one. Anyone else? Anyone else want to share theirs? Well, as I said, this is a work in progress, and this is inward work, but it's also stuff that we can do as a community to support each other. As you journey through your weeks, if you have moments of success, share them on your card, it gives, if you are social media savvy and you want to share it, just hashtag CHC grows or grow rule. This is a way that we can share our successes and our pitfalls and our hurdles and our problem solving with each other. We're also going to be building the big bulletin board together as we go through this journey. So if your plant is growing at home and you're like, yes, it's up to 2 inches now, I'm so proud of myself, share that. Take a picture of it and put it on the bulletin board. If you have a moment of clarity in the week or a moment of challenge, write it down. Put it up on the bulletin board. We're here to support each other in this journey and also to kind of be an example for others of how we as human beings, as dust of the earth, as flawed people, can depend on God and can depend on others and community to live that abundant life which is promised by Jesus Christ. If anybody was here for Ash Wednesday, you heard Sandy's sermon about the stain on his shirt and trying to cover it up and give that appearance of having everything together. And that appearance comes at all cost. And how we as children of God can admit that we all have stains, we all have brokenness that follows us around, and we don't have to put on that appearance. We don't have to put on that mask and say, I've got everything together. We can lean on each other. We can always improve. We can always be working to become more the children of God living an abundant life. So don't let your Lenten discipline rack on more guilt for you. Make it fun, make it light, make it challenging. Give yourself that support, those stakes to get you through. And as you go through this journey, think about sharing it with others so that we can help each other. Because in community, we can do far more than we can do when we're in our silos trying it by ourselves. And have fun. Take the seeds with you. Take an extra packet if you want. Plant them. These are all seeds that work both in containers and outdoors. So depending on what your house or yard look like, you can do it however you want. If you want to take one for a friend, a family member, if you want to take one for your children, take them and have fun getting into the dirt. It's perfect time to kind of get outside and plant some new things. And next week, we have the Reverend John Burris, former youth director of Holy Communion, coming to talk about diocesan projects that are taking place right here in Memphis, like the aquaponics. If you're curious what that is, that project that's taking place at the Diocesan House. Also Thistle and Bee, where they're using the gift of land and the gift of that which God grows and bees to give resources to women who have been victims of sexual assault and violence. So these are ways that we can work with nature to become more the people of God that we were created to be and to really get in touch with that. So have fun, have a good time growing, and let me know how you're doing throughout the weeks. Thank you. The cards home too. They are for you to take, and they have a prayer and scripture and activity for the week. So take those home too. Thanks, Hester. Yeah, anytime.